Hi, my lifelong passion has taken me from a young girl dancer, never wanting to stand still, through an industry of dance, movement, human movement, music, and now to writing a book, which I've done and I've published, and now into the second book, very much helped by Jane, my mentor, in getting this book done. Now, I'm just going to start with a quote, and that quote is, "Find something you are passionate about and keep tremendously interested in it." That was said by Julia Childs. If you know who she is, she's a fabulous chef that actually made women more powerful in the sense of showing that they don't have to be just a woman in the kitchen, but they can be an incredible chef and be a hatted chef, if you know what that means, and also become world famous as a French chef. Also a movie, Julia and Julia, was actually about her. Anyway, I've written a book which was published last year when I was being nominated. I was nominated then in the fitness industry and the top 5, this year in the top 3. So this book was actually really aided by Jane saying you must get this book out there. So that book is called Body and Balance, Yoga Pilates Fusion, a mind and body balanced program. And this is what I've been doing, and what has drawn me to continue to do this is that I find exercise is incredibly empowering. It takes your mind and body into a state of good health and well-being. And so I started in this industry purely by accident. I had a child, he is now 41, and I wanted to get back into feeling good physically, because I was a teacher. I'd just begun teaching actually, and then I was found out I was pregnant. I'd been married only a short time, found out that I was pregnant, and at that stage in teaching in the late 1970s, early 80s, you actually had to resign from your job. You could not get anything like maternity leave back then. I mean, it sounds incredible because that's not that long ago really in time. So I had to resign because I was pregnant. And so I had my baby, and then I suddenly realized that I needed to be finding something for me as well as being a mother. So I took that child, put him in a pram, off we went down to a local squash courts, and I said, "Do you do fitness classes?" And they said, "No, but would you like to start them?" So this is how I started, easy as that. And that was pre-Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda came out around that time. Aerobics became the word, the buzzword, but I just made it up because I was able to do it because I was a dancer. So I just made up classes. They were very, very popular, had lots of women with babies. I got fit and healthy, and there we go. That was my life. But it was lots of fun, but there was no science behind it. We didn't know what was going on. We just did stuff. Leg warmers, G-string leotards, no shoes, hard floors, just kept jumping around. And it was really good fun actually, and I just loved it. But then I continued and I started doing training, and I actually learnt some of the science behind it, and I've seen this amazing changes in the industry. So in the book that I've written, I've actually developed over the years 10 principles which I do put into every single class. And these are flow, focus, alignment, breath, cardio, balance, core, stretch, strength, and relax. Now the relax is the meditation, and the meditation, again, a young girl, I started doing yoga nidra, and in fact I was only 17, and absolutely loved it. And it's called the waking sleep. That's the other word for it. Anyway, I began doing that, and so I put that into my classes. And the interesting thing is, up until probably this century, people would just get up and walk away. Nobody wanted to lie on the floor and actually focus on their mind and their body at the same time. But now, people can hardly wait for that part of the class, and they ask for more. And that includes school kids as well, which is incredible that we live in a time where people feel they are so stressed. Well, this year's been an interesting one, hasn't it? So, what the reason behind all of this is that I have now written another book, which I'm working on publishing right this minute. And this book is about empowerment. Empowerment for women, empowerment for people, but empowerment for women. And it's called Open the Gate. And that story comes from a story my mother told me many, many years ago, where she had a horse taken away from her because she didn't get the gate open to get inside before dark. And her father threatened her, told her that she would lose the horse if she wasn't home before dark. Well, she didn't get in there. She was calling, open the gate, open the gate. And this might sound a bit woo-hoo, but this is what happened. I was studying to be a chi ball master in Adelaide. I was staying with people who I didn't know, who were all students studying. And the chi ball is a round ball. And someone made the comment that this is like a fortune teller ball. And then it came up, let's do a game. Let's play Ouija. And we started doing that, and I didn't know the person next to me, and she grabbed my arm and she started calling out, open the gate, open the gate, open the gate, open the gate. And I said, what's going on? She said, I don't even know who you are, but somebody's saying open the gate. Well, whether this is true or not, I went, oh my God, it's my mother. It's my mother, and she is telling me to be free. And that's what I believe, be free, open the gate and get out there and do what you need to do to make your life the best life that you can live. So fitness and wellness is a huge part of that life. But also the other part of it is actually realizing where you've come from, what you've done, who you are, and to take yourself to a place where you are comfortable and believe in who you are. So this book goes through a whole series, apart from the fact it talks about my family and where I'm coming from, which was a Irish, Catholic and German background, and lots of amazing stories there. I also go through stages of limiting yourself. And I limited myself, and sometimes still do. And this book is to try and get rid of those limiting beliefs, because the limiting beliefs is what stops us from doing anything. And I had a situation occur where I actually wasn't just a limiting belief, I physically was injured. But it was this century. I went to yoga classes and I started doing the hot yoga classes, which I will never, ever recommend to anybody to go to hot yoga rooms. And I was in a yoga class and the teacher knew who I was. She knew that I was physically very fit, and decided that I could actually take myself further into a particular stretch I was in. Well, that stretch, that leg, it was my right leg, was pulled back behind me, twisted, and ripped my labrum. Now, if you know what the labrum is, it actually holds the whole hip together. Okay, it's very important to have that. And when that was ripped, I was in pain. But I was in the heated room and I just thought, oh, it'll be okay. So I continued doing classes. I continued doing that particular yoga class and then found I was still in pain. But my determination and my thoughts on natural health and well-being was that I can help myself. So I continued doing classes, continued teaching, continued walking into my classes in pain, and continued pushing myself through pain. And I did that for 7 years. 7 years trying to heal myself. Alternatives, I went to naturopaths, I went to people where I was actually working as a gym manager at Blackmore's at the time. And so I went to the naturopath there, I did all the vitamins, I took the right things. And I remember one naturopath saying to me one day, Jill, I think you need to do something about this. I think you need to take drugs to start with to get that pain down and go and see someone. And I didn't even have a doctor at that point. So I went to a local GP. The GP said, go and get an x-ray. I got an x-ray, and sure enough, I had a very, very diminished right hip. So 7 years of pushing myself through pain, and they used to say, back in the 80s actually, they used to say no pain, no gain. Well, pain means there's a problem. And because I ignored it for so long, I probably made it a lot worse. In fact, I know I made it a lot worse. But when I actually went to a hip specialist, discovered that I actually had been born with hip dysplasia. So there was already a preposition there for this to happen. So I eventually, shock horror, was told I need a total hip replacement. Well, that denial was big. I thought, no, I'm too young. I can't have a hip replacement. Isn't that just for old people? As it turns out, it's not. Lots of people have hip replacements due to various injuries, particularly these days. There are so many injuries that are occurring due to the different sports, extreme sports. And so I did go and have the hip replacement. Never forget that first coming out of anaesthetic and just feeling so sick. And they'd put me on morphine, a morphine drip, in fact, and I was sick. Poor nurse, she was amazing. I'll never forget her name either, Roxanne, her name was. That's a song, of course. And Roxanne said to me, stand up. And I said, I can't. She said, yes, you can. I said, no, I can't. She said, yes, you can. She got me by the hands. She got me up, and I vomited all over her. Oh, I feel terrible. I felt terrible. She said, don't worry, I'm used to it. She said, but you can walk. And I said, I can't walk. She said, yes, you can. So it was like I had her support, plus I also had a frame. And so I took a couple of steps like that. And then I said, I can't do this, I've got to sit down. But that took, by the 7th day, I was walking with a frame. I was able to leave the hospital. I left the hospital with crutches. And within 6 weeks, I was back teaching again with a new hip. And I kept telling people, which I still do, that I've got very young hips. Anyway, but what happened out of that, due to that, I ended up, because I had left it so long on my right hip, my left hip began to deteriorate because I'd put all the pressure on my left hip. So, 7 years later, I had my second hip replacement, which was in 2014. And really, I've never looked back. So, the book, Yoga Pilates Fusion, that became published due to the fact that Jane Turner absolutely said that I must do this, that I have this knowledge, that I've got all this information, that I can help people. So the reason be doing all of this is because I know I can help people, and I've helped many, many people. The second book, which began before the first book, is one of those things where you go, do people really want to read my story? Well, I think the story is really good, and it brings into the place that we are in now. So we are in 2020 and COVID and lockdown, which has changed a lot of the ways that we have to deal with life. And online is just absolutely out there all the time, which is incredible that we can actually see and discuss, have meetings with other people in other parts of Australia and the world. And this has been incredible. So I talk about this in the beginning of the book, how you can pivot around. So we had to all pivot fairly quickly. But the book being written, or began in 2018, the writing of this book, is also about the fact that we have also gone through a movement, which is the Me Too movement, which is still going on. In fact, in many ways, it's getting worse. There was a story yesterday about women being taken off a Qatar plane and without even any permission or anything, no discussion, and told to have an internal examination because somebody had left a baby in a toilet. I mean, that to me is horrific. What's going on? You know, that sort of thing shocks me. And I think, oh, those poor women who had no idea what was going on too, to have to be examined. But anyway, that's 2020 right now. And the rest of the world, there's a lot of things going on that is absolutely disgraceful. But the Me Too movement has brought to the fore what is going on for women who have lived with sexual assault and abuse for generations, really. And I remember saying to people once that every woman is assaulted in some way, whether it be verbally or physically. It is happening to every woman. So empowerment, we actually get suppressed by this. Empowerment is so important, that we can step away and become and realize who we are, what our purpose is, and why we're here, and what we're going to do to make our lives the best lives we can have. So my belief is actually through fitness and wellness, but also there are a lot of different things you can do that are to help you grow, to help your mindset, to help you change and become more positive and more who you are. So this book has a lot of samples of exercise and stories. So the stories go from the Me Too, but also from childhood for me and being brought up in a Catholic religion. And that's another story. What again is the abuse from priests and nuns, which I have observed firsthand. And I am not mentioning any names, but some of those people are prominent in the Catholic religion. So moving through that, it's taken many, many, many years for me to move through what occurred as a young child. Being told that I was stupid, that jumping around meant that I was a really naughty person. I was put into dance, actually, thank you to my mother, because the nuns complained that I was quite active. Well, I suppose I would have been. I still am. And I am so glad that they actually pushed me into that. But I was constantly told that, I wasn't good enough, that I'd never get through anything. I remember in HSC being told by a nun, gee, I hope you become a teacher so you can get horrible people like you. Stuff like that. Really, really awful stuff. And I did become a teacher. So for me, movement was a very part of being a teacher as well. So I ended up becoming a teacher for hearing impaired children, and I ran a centre called the Shepherd Centre in Chatswood, and all of my kids that I taught still say that I'm the one that helped them to speak a lot through movement. Now, I would dance with these kids, I'd sing with these kids, I'd do a lot of physical stuff with them, because I do believe the human movement and vibration, particularly for people with hearing impairment, actually helps them to be able to live a more powerful life as well. So I do know a lot of these kids, some of these kids are now in their 40s. So, they come back to me, cochlear implant children, and have told me that I was their special, that I had them from babyhood up to about 5, 6, 7 years of age, and then they would go to school. So that was another phase of my life. I've brought this up in the book, and again, empowerment for people. And I am stepping up, and people shrinking in fear of what's going on now is something that I really want to promote, that we do not shrink in fear, that we face what's happening and we make what's going on what we need to be doing in our lives. So my book, Open the Gate, and my other book, Body and Balance, a Yoga Pilates Fusion, tell stories, and I'm really happy that I can be standing here telling my story today.